right, as folks are introducing themselves in the chat, I am excited to welcome you all to our first webinar of the 25-26 school year. As I said, am Brittany Griffin, your host from the Learner-Centered Collaborative, and today we're going to explore how you can leverage AI in your learner-centered classroom. And I am delighted to be joined by two incredible guest panelists. We have Shannon Roos from Hampton Township and Cherry Moore from Escondido Union School District, and we're going to hear a lot more from them in just a few moments. With that, just a quick anchoring. We like to always start our webinars with the LCC vision, our learner-centered collaborative vision, in which we see education ecosystems where all learners know who they are, thrive in community, and actively engage in the world as their best selves. And so we want to use that vision to help us anchor the way, the frame, the lens through which we are looking at AI. And how can we think about AI as a tool to help learners know who they are, thrive in community, and actively engage in the world as their best selves? A little bit of background, I would imagine you've seen this version of a slide before, but if you haven't, or if you haven't heard of Moore's Law, we know that the power of technology is increasing exponentially. And I remember seeing this visual back in college, I won't say how many years ago, but decades ago, and thinking, oh, it's going to be so cool someday when we get to that inflection point. And I'm shocked and surprised and amazed to be standing in this moment where we've reached that inflection point, right? Like the number of ChatGPT and AI users went from, 1 to millions faster than any other technology has ever scaled. So it's pretty incredible to be bearing witness to this moment in humanity where technology absolutely continues to increase exponentially, and it's crazy to imagine what will be coming tomorrow. But what we know about AI is that there's a pedagogical bias in these AI tools. There was a study done recently across 90 lesson plans, and that study found that AI-generated content really helps teachers develop resources and ideas and lessons that promote teacher-centered work. There's very limited opportunities for student choice, goal setting, and meaningful dialogue. And that is the purpose of today's webinar, is to talk about how we can push through that, right? We don't want to replace teacher-centered classrooms. We really want to reimagine AI such that AI is superpowering learner-centered classrooms and learner-centered approaches, which is why, of course, I have brought Shannon and Cherry here today, because they're doing just that in their own contexts. So when we talk about a learner-centered approach or a learner-centered classroom, what we mean is it is a shift away from a teacher or a school-centered moment where students are sorted and ranked, and testing and learning is standardized. Content is in silos, and really it's about compliance and completion. And what we're nudging towards is a learner-centered approach where we are really anchoring in community and belonging, with elements being personalized based on students' interests and goals and strengths, with authentic applications and real-world connections. And it's competency-based, meaning that students are getting cycles of feedback and they're very aware of where they are in the learning process. It's not just about completing the task or passing the end summative test, but it is a being aware of and monitoring your learning throughout that learning process. So how can AI help us do that? Well, we know that there's a learner-centered ecosystem that starts with whole learner outcomes. And around those whole learner outcomes, once we know the skills, the knowledge, the habits, the dispositions that we want learners to develop, then we can start to create learning experiences in a learning model, right? That this is what teaching and learning needs to look like. And surrounding that is a school design, right? You need the structures of the school to be able to support the implementation of that learning model that helps you get to those whole learner outcomes. So this ecosystem is a bit like an onion, each layer empowering and getting us closer and closer to achieving and nurturing those whole learner outcomes with our students. And AI fits within this ecosystem in that it's an enabling condition, right? It is part of the conditions and structures and tools that allow schools and teachers in particular to create learner-centered experiences that lead to those whole learner outcomes. With that, knowing that we want AI to help us create not just teacher-centered experiences and materials, but learner-centered experiences, we have created a very free, very readily available for you Learning Experience Accelerator. And something important to notice is that with our partner schools, oftentimes the whole learner outcomes are very bespoke and unique and personalized for their local community, which makes it difficult for us to prepare an app that connects to all of those unique portraits of a graduate or a graduate profile or learner profile. And so we turned to our partners at America Succeeds, who created the durable skills, which we have found after auditing many, many portraits and profiles, really captures the big picture of those whole learner outcomes that employers are looking for as they hire in industry. And so they have done an analysis across millions of job postings and come up with those durable skills, the skills that will persist well beyond your K-12 education. And they came up with these top 10, which very much align, as I mentioned, with the outcomes that we see in graduate profiles and learner portraits across the country. So we have anchored on this framework as the North Star in our free app that we're very excited for you to check out today. This app has also been trained by the learner-centered collaborative learning model, and we've put all of our research about what makes a learner-centered experience learner-centered, meaning it is anchored in community, it's personalized, it's authentic, and it's competency-based. So not only was this app trained using whole learner outcomes, but also the learner-centered collaborative learning model. One other note about this app is it will take teachers through a backwards design process. So first, you will have educators be prompted to share their context. If it's a lesson plan that they already have, an idea, a standard, whatever they have, they can share their kernel with this app. From there, the app will recommend whole learner outcomes, those durable skills that are connected to whatever the teacher entered into the prompt. Once you've aligned on the whole learner outcomes that you're working towards, then you can start to co-create success with the app. The app will recommend some success criteria, rubric language, and then finally, it will help you design the learning experience itself. So it will give you ideas for learner-centered strategies that you can use, ranging from choice boards to student-led conferences to authentic audiences and authentic performance tasks. So there's hundreds of learner-centered strategies that are baked in. It will also be your thought partner in creating a unit plan or resources to share with your students. So with that, I think it's important to give you a moment just to open the app. And as you do, of course, it's a webinar and we want to hear from our speakers. So just keep it open and reference it after this call. We do request that you add your name and your email only because we do not want a bunch of bots automatically going in and flooding this AI tool with data. So we do gate it behind your name and email, but otherwise it's completely free. And I just want to name, to keep in mind as you explore this a little later today, unlike some AI tools like ChatGPT, you don't have to prompt this app. This app will actually prompt you. So it will ask you questions as a teacher and guide you through the backwards design process. Now, just like any other AI app, you can ask it questions and engage fully, but no, there's no sophisticated prompt generation that is necessary for this. We tried to make it as easy as possible to get folks in. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to our hosts, or our panelists rather, because it's been so incredibly inspiring to hear their stories. And actually it was their stories that led us to develop, and in some cases, in partnership with them to develop this Learning Experience Accelerator app. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Shannon first. Shannon, do you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Shannon Roos. I'm an instructional coach and an English teacher at Hampton High School. So we're a small district outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And this year I'm teaching our AP research course and 10th grade English. And then I spend the other half of my day working on district PD projects like AI integration, and also working with teachers on individual goals and needs they might have.
Awesome. And with that, I'll turn it over. Cherry, you want to do a quick intro?
Yes. So my name is Cherry Moore. I am the current director of teaching and learning at Escondido Union School District. I am now here at the district office, but that's only 2 days old. So when I started this journey and talking with them, I was the principal at North Broadway Elementary School, which is where I started this journey with AI and kind of planning for my staff because we were doing redesign. And so I'm going to be bringing this to you from a lens of an administrator sort of planning for her staff, like how are we going to do this? And how does it connect to helping teachers as we're planning learner-centered lessons and connecting to whole learner outcomes? So my work has been in it, just like you, probably out there watching this as leading this work. How are we doing this together? Because not all of us have done that. But I've been a teacher for 10 and a TOSA for 10 years, kind of leading that work as a site, and now an administrator. So I kind of bring all those lenses to my work and try to stay very connected to the classroom. So that's a little bit about me. And then am I jumping right into our story? So, Escondido, like you heard, has been on this journey with LCC as a district. Each of our schools are going to be going through what we call the redesign process with the Learner Center Collaborative, where we have a framework for the future, which is our guiding light, our North Star, we call it, where we're trying to reach these whole learner outcomes you can see in the diagram on the screen. And we have a learning model where we are trying to embed competency-based learning, personalized learning, inclusive and equitable, and then also authentic learning experiences in our day with our students. And so when we focus on those four areas, then we are trying to have these outcomes in our with our students by the end of 8th grade. So when we're working on that with teachers, we were really struggling with how do we build lessons like this? We're still trying to learn how to do this. And so teachers were starting to dive into AI to really figure out, okay, how am I going to create lessons that target these areas? And so myself as a site administrator trying to lead this work, I just started seeing a lot of random kind of like grab out and go out and look and some dives into teacher paid teachers to look for something that would do critical thinking skills and a dive over here to just randomist and that's just not how for the way I try to lead it didn't feel like we had a consistent direction. So we took a step back and I said, okay, how are we going to do this together and do this kind of methodical way? How are we going to learn a little as we go and kind of scale it out? So we have what we call a design team at the site. So we met with my teacher leaders and kind of said, okay, here's what I'm starting to see is everybody's scrambling right now because we don't have a consistent plan. We have no way to sort of teach. And so we went back to, okay, let's first build the foundation. And to me, this was really critical in the first step is to be a critical consumer to know what's being pushed out from a chat GPT or any other AI is you have to know what you're looking at to know whether it's putting out a good product. And so we started with really teaching our teachers what the foundation was. So like if you were using this durable app, you would want to start with, in my opinion, just start with what are the outcomes you're trying to get to so that the staff, when they're looking at what comes out, are you seeing those outcomes in the product that's put out? I'm gonna tell you, you're going to with probably the durable app because we have an app that the Playbot that they built for us, and it works out great because the app pushes those things out. So we really wanted the teachers to be able to see and identify those areas. So to be able to identify it, you have to know it. So we started with kind of the base knowledge for all of our staff. Then what we did is we started in a small way where we have classes called explore classes. And the idea of explore classes is it's not core content areas, it's classes where teachers are exploring an area of interest for students, an area that the teacher has expertise in. They're just fun things like we have poetry classes and pottery classes and oceanography, and they're supposed to be classes students have some choice in and are able to explore a talent or a skill that they have. And so we decided to take on classes like that are an hour a week, and let teachers explore and practice this in that area because it was not a core content area. It let them practice in a non high stakes place. And so we applied our AI practicing in those areas. So used the app that we have is called Playbot that was connected to LCC. And we used that to put in, okay, it would go through and you can see an example of it on the screen, series of questions. And it helps you kind of walk through, prompting you just like the Durable app does, walk you through the series of questions. And it would help them build out a unit of study that was 5 weeks long that did the poetry, but it would focus in on whatever whole learner outcomes they were trying to connect to. So it was really about, for me as the instructional leader on site, it was really about trying to help the staff understand what they were looking for when the product was spit out of whatever app they were using. Like I said, whether it was an app connected to that already had the whole learner outcomes in it, or whether it was something like chat that was, just an app that didn't have our information in it. Because I think it's important to lay the groundwork. And then what was really exciting, and I think this was critical in how it started growing at our site, is we had teachers that would try it and they would be doing the training with the other teachers. So we made smaller groups because I don't know about you, but when training teachers on tech, it's sometimes really challenging because everybody's at different levels. So we did that in grade level groups. And so grade levels would get together, they would try it and demo it to a smaller group of teachers, and then they would try it out in a smaller group. And then that started scaling things where people felt a little more comfortable, but they had a base of knowledge to go from. So that's a little bit about our journey and kind of an intro to that. Let's see, are there some questions?
Oh, I have a million questions for you,
Okay.
Terry. I want to draw a connection really quickly, if it's okay with you.
Yeah.
You mentioned that this was a Play Lab app that we created with you all, which is spot on. And in fact, both Cherry and Shannon were part of a prototyping phase last year where we were doing a ton of learning, and those learnings are actually what informed this more neutral, durable skills version of what we internally call LEA, the Learning Experience Accelerator app. So Cherry's example is specific, right? It has their specific learner portrait embedded in the app, but otherwise the workflow is the same. So the stories that you're hearing, it's exactly what inspired this more accessible, open to all, not just Escondido version of the app. So yeah, I just wanted to draw that connection because the story was great. Cherry, I'm curious, is there an anecdote, a teacher that got really inspired, or a lesson that you saw that was just like, yes, this is what we were looking for? No shade, teachers pay teachers, but it was a little different than what was happening before. Is there something you could share?
You know what? I think it really, the teachers really felt that it was hitting when they were trying to build these explore classes, when they were randomly going out. They could find lessons because when we went through redesign, let me back up a minute. When we went through redesign, our focus at our school site was to kind of have a bigger purpose. So our school is focusing on sustainability and community and kind of having an environmental science focus to try and have kids have a little bit more understanding of their impact on the world, kind of themselves, and kind of have bigger purpose, right? So when they would go out and look in lots of different places for lessons or trying to find things, it was still very random and disconnected. So when they went to the AI generated lessons, whatever system they were using, they were able to then hone it in to connect it to those topics. And they found that it became much more connected so that it was having the elements of sustainability. It could have community built in. It could draw in this, okay, how does this help a student show their impact on the world connected to this topic? So there was a lot of comments that came back to me that were connecting back to our bigger mission and our bigger identity as a school site that we were trying to develop in our redesign. So for them, I think they started getting more engaged with it because not only did it save them time, which, you know, our jobs as educators is very complex and it's very time consuming. And then when you start seeing the benefits of differentiation, that's a whole nother topic because that's amazing. And then when you start seeing that you can connect it to these bigger ideas that you're trying to focus in on as a site, or district, I think they really felt that that was the most beneficial part of it, is it wasn't as disconnected.
I think that is such a golden nugget, is how can you leverage your mission, your vision, your portrait or profile to be a unifier and a connector that connects
Yeah.
across content areas, across grade levels. That is such a beautiful piece of wisdom. And I think as we think about AI for learner-centered work, that's got to be step one. That's central. I love it. That's great.
Oh, you know what? I have one more. You'll love this too, because I couldn't believe this. Our speech pathologist took this idea, and you know, sometimes they're very out of these ideas, but she took it and she ran with it, where she started going in and taking the lexile level of the student, the interest area of the student, and the articulation area target that she was trying to work on, and she would have it generate a passage that she wanted the student to practice that was on topic that the child wanted to read about, dinosaurs or Star Wars or whatever, at the reading level they needed, but also had the articulation area. So it was just like this amazing thing that kept growing in areas that I didn't realize it would grow in. So
Such an incredible anecdote of how it just supercharges that personalized
yeah,
space, right? My favorite thing I think that I heard though is that the educator was listening to the student. It wasn't like plopping a kid down in front of a tool and letting the tool do that, but it really was about the relationship that that teacher was building, and the teacher was able to offer that highly personalized content back. That's incredible. I love
yeah,
it. Well, with that, if you don't mind, Shannon, I'm going to
yeah.
pivot over to you. I'd love to hear your use case. Tell me more about your context. And actually, if you'll do a little bit more of a deep dive, maybe explain your dual role as teacher and coach, just to clarify.
Sure. So my work in AI really started a few years ago when our principal came to our instructional coaching team at the high school and said, "Hey, kids are using this thing called ChatGPT and they're cheating. Like, how do we know what if they're using it or not?" So it definitely came from that place of like, "Oh no, here's a problem. How can we fix it for teachers?" And then over the past 3 years or so, it's really evolved to similar to what Sherry was saying, working as a district to first develop teacher and staff efficacy around AI tools for themselves. So the instructional coaching team, we've created asynchronous courses. The first year was understanding AI, and then district approved tools for teachers to use to do a lot of what Cherry was talking about, like how can we personalize learning experiences for kids? How can we differentiate what's available to us, like the Play Labs app, to help us really kind of supercharge our teaching and learning towards AI, or I'm sorry, towards personalization. And then while we were having those conversations, we were also working on kind of developing our district mindset around AI, our goals. So we created a district guidebook for all the teachers to use as well, that kind of just level sets, like what are we all thinking about and what's the perspective of Hampton Township School District when we think about AI. And then all the teachers have access to that. Our course this year kind of shifted away from teacher tools to how can we leverage AI with our students? So how can we empower them to use it in the classroom? And then as we're doing that, so as we're putting tools into the students' hands, how do we really help them to engage thoughtfully and ethically, and in a way that will empower them to learn better, not do the work for them? So we're really trying to pair that teaching them about AI, AI literacy, AI ethics with the introduction of learner-centered tools. So that's kind of what we've done over the past few years to get to where we are today. And then my use case, what I'm most excited about is in my AP research class. I have students working cross-curricularly to design a year-long research project. And I'm an English teacher, so I feel so confident in helping to guide them through the process, but they oftentimes come in with topics and ideas that I have no idea about. I mean, like proprietary consumer electronics. Can we use, what are we using? Can we use plant venom to help antibiotic resistant diseases? I mean, they come in with the coolest things. So I've been working to create using School AI, which is similar to Play Lab, which is similar to Magic School, a student-facing tool that will help to walk them through and help them to think about their discipline-specific needs and work through their project and their process. So the tool itself will ask them to upload 2 or 3 examples of resources that are really informing their thinking. So building a base of knowledge similar to the student before they engage with it. And then it uses Socratic questioning and dialogic conversations to kind of prompt the student to think through what their choices are. What are some methods you've considered? Why did you think about those ones? Have you thought about this idea? To kind of empower them to work through their learning. And we've been using kind of that same model of creating walled AI tools that can serve as thinking partners for the students in classes across the district. So we're working right now with one of our health and wellness teachers on a tool that just helps students to reflect on their choices that they've been making around like nutrition and exercise, using kind of the guidelines in their textbook. So again, kind of really closed resources. How did you feel after you did more walking last week? So they'll journal about what they've done and the changes they've made and how they've been feeling. And then they kind of use the tool as a partner to bounce it off and get suggestions about what they might try next week. So we've been using lots of those tools. And it's great because it kind of all comes within the instructional coaching umbrella here at Hampton. And we have instructional coaches K-12. So we're able to kind of meet together and talk about what is a progression of these skills and what tools are appropriate at what grade levels, when might they be introduced to these different things as we go. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
What an incredible story. I love the interplay, Cherry, your perspective as a leader and what you did to create the conditions. And Shannon, you both as a teacher and in that sort of middle space as a coach where you're bridging those. I just think this was such a great story to highlight what is possible beyond cheating on an essay. I think that's so many people get hung up that's where we are, and maybe that's 6 months ago. People are starting to evolve beyond that. But how can we supercharge our learner-centered efforts? And hearing that students are reflecting on their experiences in PE. PE was the last place that I would think of using AI, right? But how cool that they are finding ways to integrate it in meaningful ways to let kids have time for metacognitive experiences and reflective experiences that we all know the research shows is so powerful. I
Yeah,
love
it was
that.
so great. Our PE teacher came to us and he said, I use ChatGPT to help me plan my workouts. Like, here's my goal. And then I break down how much time I have till I can get to the goal. Like, I want my students to learn that they can use a tool in a similar way. So how can they use it as a tool to help them achieve a goal or to reflect on how they're feeling and the healthy choices they're making? So we were able to say, like, okay, here's the reasons why we can't just use ChatGPT, but let's design this chatbot together and try it out and work with the kids to make sure it's kind of meeting the goals at a ninth grade appropriate level.
Oh, such a great story. Well, you know me, I have a million questions, but I want to tap into the power of the room if we can. So if you have been screaming at your screen, like, oh, wait, there's this other thing I want to know, now is your time to shine. If you look down at the bottom of your Zoom menu near the mute button and the camera on and off button, you'll see a Q&A option. Please feel free to take a moment and drop your questions in. I'm hoping we get lots and lots of questions and we can't even answer them all on this call, and we will commit to following up in a recap email with any questions that we're not able to get to. But I'm going to turn some music on for just a moment and give you a second to think of your questions to share with our presenters. All right, questions are starting to trickle in. Let's start with this one. Jennifer has asked, how do you incorporate and account for the environmental impact of AI with your students? And since this is a student-specific question, Shannon, I'll toss that over to you, although please feel free, Cherry, to chime in if there's a specific point of view that you'd like to share.
So a couple things. So with high school students, before we introduce any of these tools, I like to start kind of with like a human design activity where I just ask them, what do you think about AI right now? What are, the benefits? What are challenges? What are potential? And we talk through all of those. They do a lot of individual post-it noting. We look for themes and trends, and we kind of use that to frame our discussion around responsible use and choices around that. Around, how can it impact your learning for good? How can it impact your learning for bad? What does it do to the environment? And then can we make the most responsible choices we can about using AI, knowing the environmental impact? And then the other thing that I really like to do in my own classroom is an AI app is always an option. So if we're using an AI tool, for example, to get feedback, it'll be an AI feedback tool like Class Companion is an option. Or here's a peer editing guide you can work on with a partner. Or I'm available to conference around like a particular skill or a particular idea that you might want to improve in your work. So I'm a big proponent that we need to teach every student about AI and we need to empower them to make those choices, but I wouldn't personally want to force a kid then to engage with the tool. So we always give them that choice. In the wellness class I was talking about, it was, discuss your journal with this AI tool, or Mr. DiMatteo will give you some coaching around your goals. So we always try to kind of frame it in that way, that it's not necessary, it's an option.
Love such a learner-centered approach, giving options, letting kids reflect on which ones work best for them, empowering them to make those choices. I love it. All right, another question came in. Let's see. What differentiates the Durable Skills Learning Experience Accelerator app from others like Magic School or School AI? I actually think I might be able to answer this question first, although Shannon and Cherry are seasoned pros at using that app, so please feel free to chime in. I think what's really different is that the Leah app is trained with whole learner outcomes and possibly more importantly, all of the research that the Learner Centered Collaborative has done in terms of the pedagogically sound, research-based, learner-centered practices. So a school AI or a Magic School may not recommend learner-centered approaches. They may recommend more traditional approaches, which are fine and have a place, right? Like we certainly don't want to suggest that every single learning experience ever has to be fully learner-centered. Like it's a spectrum, it's a journey. So I think this is just a really great tool for educators who are ready to create more choices, to create more authentic connections in their classrooms. That's what the Leah app is specifically built to do, in service of those whole learner outcomes, which I think is really different than the Magic School and School AI approach. Shannon and Cherry, anything you might add or double down on?
I think for me, the big difference was kind of to piggyback a little bit on what you said, is that the difference between is that it's the outcomes that you're trying to reach. The Magic School, the School AI, chat, all of those don't take into account the outcomes you're trying to get to. You can okay, chat, you could upload, if you're paying the extra fee, your outcome docs you want. This is what we're trying, our goals and our outcomes that we're trying to achieve. But if you're not doing that, then you're just getting the random AI kind of draw. So with these, there are specific targeted outcomes that we're trying to achieve that are learner-centered. And so I think that is the big shift, is if whether your own classroom, your site, or your district goals align with that, I think you're going to get a much higher quality product that aligns with that.
All right, another question coming in. As a coach or an administrator, so this question can be for both of you, what's the best way to convince teachers who don't want to start all over, but would really benefit from using AI to make their lessons more learner-centered?
I can start. I would say, start with a reflection on pain points. So what isn't going well for you right now with your current context, with the classes, the students you have right now? Like, is it that you have students with a really wide variety of needs and you're having a hard time reaching all of them? Is it something like you're overwhelmed with giving formative feedback to kids as they're working in class? Is it something like you wish that your unit on whatever or your novel study was more relevant? So I think if you can kind of get them to think about one change they can make within their current context, and then coach around using AI, using learner-centered outcomes to ease that pain or that burden, that's kind of been a really great in for us. Yeah, just getting them to identify something that's not working well and helping them to see that, oh, we could use this tool to level our texts, or, maybe we can use this chatbot to help us think about a different structure for the lesson or to create a real world learning opportunity. So that's kind of where I'd go with that one.
I would agree. It kind of hits on one of the other questions that popped up about multilingual learners and students with disabilities, as teachers always struggle with how to reach all the learners. And so if they pinpoint that they're struggling with that or differentiating, and then, because the AI has the ability to even just drop their text or their whole lesson plan in there, copy and paste style, and then ask it to differentiate it. It can do that in seconds to give them some ideas, some jumping off places. And then if they have that quick, then they can use their teacher lens to really go back to you when they know what they're looking for. Okay, am I reaching that target that matches this student? But it can quickly give them some ideas or even a different text to use. So I think really targeting, like you said, some parts of their lessons or parts of their day that are challenging that they know they want to do better in, and use this as a way to connect those to help ease that, because teaching's complex and it's just getting more complex.
Um, to build on that with multilingual learners and students with disabilities, I think middle school and high school, as the students are getting older, teaching them about tools that they can use to do this for themselves. So for example, like in your Microsoft Edge browser, the immersive reader can open up the text, whatever it is, a PDF, a web page, anything that they might be doing digitally, and the student can expand the text. It can highlight one word at a time for them. It can help them with their reading skills. And then it'll also translate that document, that text, into hundreds of different languages. So teaching students about the tools that they can use to help themselves meet goals too, I think as they become older, can really be a great benefit.
I think a hidden message that I heard in the great ideas that both of you just shared might just be time and space to talk about what people are testing, whether it be students, teachers, adults, kids. I know at Learner Centered Collaborative, I think it's once a month, we just have an open AI session that is facilitated officially by someone, but really it's just a space for us to all come in and bumble around together and talk about, this is what I've been trying to do. Oh, have you thought about clicking this button or trying this prompt? And we co-create these best practices. And what that has allowed me to do, one, is to be a learner and have no shame in not knowing how to use everything as proficiently as I aspire to. But also, it's just created this incredible energy and dialogue that sometimes can really be missing. Cherry, to your point, teaching is complex and tiresome and takes so many hours. And so those collaborative moments, if they're not supercharged and powerful, we just end up grading during that time or repurposing for other independent work. And it feels to me like this is a real opportunity for productive collaboration across teachers, across students, across content areas, as we're all just trying to figure it out together.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just learned that I could plan out a workout lesson through using it that way. I mean, that's amazing, right? Like, who would have thought of using it like that? So I think there's a lot of uses that we just need to open up the space for
Yeah.
in education.
Well, I think that there's one more question in the Q&A, and I believe, and it's from an anonymous person. So if if I don't interpret your question correctly, please feel free to submit another one in the Q&A. But the question was, would the app have the capacity for usage at an early learning setting? And I'm assuming you're asking about the Durable Skills Leah app. And yeah, absolutely. Teachers of any age group, littles all the way up to our seniors, and I don't mean in high school, I mean the oldest of learners, can go into this app and test it out and give us some feedback. All right, with that, I am going to start winding us down, unless there's some other questions that pop up in the Q&A, but I'm going to just very quickly re-anchor us in the big picture of our learner-centered ecosystem. I went through this pretty quickly before, so just want to come back to our belief that we always start with the outcomes that we want for learners. Oftentimes districts are defining those in their portraits or their profiles, and Cherry and Shannon talked about that's really what's different in our Durable Skills Leah app is we lead with that. And then we build, much like an onion, we build out. So what are the learning experiences that get to those outcomes? What does the school design need to look like, right? What are the communities, and what is the bell schedule and the distributed leadership, and what are the structures that empower teachers to teach that way so they're getting to those outcomes? And then the enabling conditions, like our policies and how we allocate resources and how we hire teachers and the culture, they all are in support of learners getting to those whole learner outcomes. And we are delighted and privileged to partner with districts all over the country to do that work. And we do it in 4 ways. We help them create coherence, which is defining those outcomes. We help build capacity through educator and leadership training. We do a lot of co-design. You heard Cherry talking about school redesign work. So we partnered with her school last year. And of course, last but not least, we try to measure impact, right? We try to help tell the story of how these changes are impacting your community. So if you're interested in being part of our partner network, as you can see, we've got lots of coverage from East to West Coast, and we also go from individual schools to districts all the way up to states and national partners. We would love to support you in partnership or just through the resources freely available on our website. If you go to learnercentered.org, that's where you can find the Durable Skills Leah tool under our resources tab, but there's a lot more there for you, including all of our learner-centered strategy pages. So how did we train this AI app? It's with those resources from our website. So please feel free to check it out, subscribe to our newsletter. We would love to keep learning along with you. A couple of in-person experiences, if you'd like to join us, we are going to be convening in Fargo, North Dakota at the Northern Cass School District in October 21st and 22nd. We're going to go out and do some school visits. They have got some incredibly innovative competency-based assessment practices that we're going to go and learn more about. So if you'd like to join us, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to have you come along. We'll also be at the Full Scale Symposium, formerly known as the Aurora Institute in New Orleans, which also is on the theme of competency-based assessment and reporting. And then we have another webinar coming up just before Thanksgiving. We will be talking about big moves that districts can make in that enabling condition, those outer layers of that ecosystem ring. What are those big shifts that districts can make to supercharge school redesign, learning experiences in service of whole learner outcomes? So please feel free to check out our events page on our learnercentered.org website to sign up for any of those upcoming events. With that, I've done plenty of talking. Now we'd like to hear from you all. Please give us feedback on this webinar, as we really do read it, and it will inform future webinars to make sure we are giving you the best experience possible. So give you just a second to fill out this feedback survey, and then we're going to close up shop for the day. I just want to express gratitude for you all coming. Major shout out and kudos to Sherry and Shannon for sharing their incredible stories. Cherry and Shannon, any final closing thoughts as we wind down?
Thank you for having us. And I just encourage you to take it slow and think about it's not going away. It's going to be here. It's all around us, and how we can roll this out for our staff and for our students. And I think, just like we said, opening up spaces like this for us to talk about it as educators we're going to be making a big difference. And I think if we do it together, we'll make a big difference. So thank you everybody for joining and having this conversation with us.
Yeah, just thank you everyone for coming and for giving us the opportunity to speak about AI today. And if anybody wants to share resources, talk shop, connect with me, I love it. Let me know. Or if there's anything we talked about that you'd like to see in action, happy to share.
Thank you, Cherry and Shannon. And just a quick plug, if you haven't clicked on that resources tab at the bottom of the Zoom call, please do. There are some incredible resources available to you, and they will all be sent out in the recap email that will come out in just a couple days as we get this recording prepared for you to send out. Thank you, everyone, and looking forward to seeing you at the next one.